At this time, I would like to bring up Father Bob Carson. Brother Bob is here, a member of our counseling department, and Brother Bob Carson is, of course, of the Society of Jesus. He will lead us in grace. Brother Carson.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Lord, as we continue this day to nourish our souls and bodies with the celebration, honoring the Father, Son, and alumni, and the grace we have received, and the food we are about to take, we thank you for all your gifts that you've given us. Continue to give us the abundance of your grace to fulfill your will in serving others, especially during the Lenten season. Thank you, Lord, for all the fathers, sons, and the alumni whom are gathered here in this community we call St. Joseph's Prep, to celebrate the life you have given us, especially those who are now gathered here for refreshment, conversation, and goodwill. Let us remember the gift of our past alumni and fathers, who once were a part of this vital tradition of the Prep. Let us give gratitude to all those who worked to make this morning of celebration a success. Dear Lord, in the midst of thanksgiving and gratitude, please bring harmony and peace to our global communities, especially within our own country, the United States. In all that we are thankful for in our gathering, let us say together, bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you so much. First of all, a big thank you to all who worked to prepare and serve our meal this morning. How about a big hand for them? My name is Tony Braithwaite. I'm the Prep class of '89, and I work in the Prep Marketing and Admissions Office, and for the past 23 years, I have served as the director of the Cape and Sword Drama Society here at the Prep. 1776 opens May 12th. It is my pleasure to once again serve as MC for this morning's event and to welcome you all here today. I want to point out a few key people who are with us today. First, I'd like to recognize former presidents of our Alumni Association in attendance today. Hank Adamczyk, class of '53, Armand Della Porta, class of '73, Peter Della Porta, class of '75, Steve Kriz, class of '92, Andy Lynch, class of '85, Jim Murray, class of '59, Lou Pausano, class of '59. Also with us today is former Prep President Father George Burr, SJ, class of '59. Let's give them all a big hand, and if they could stand at this time and be recognized. I'd also like to welcome the members of the Board of Trustees who have joined us this morning. Steve Gleason, class of '83, Joe Mancano, class of '72, and Chris Tretta, class of '71, who are also former Alumni Association presidents themselves, and Father John Swope, the Society of Jesus, class of '72. How about a big hand for them? Please stand at this time. At this time, it is my privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker. Tom Cellucci graduated from the Prep in 1976 after growing up in South Jersey. In his 40 years since leaving 17th and Girard, he has gone on to great success in both the public and the private sectors, including working with many US presidents. And so, without any further ado, would you please welcome Mr. Tom Cellucci of the great Prep class of 1976. Tom.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Father Swope and all the administrators and staff of St. Joe's Prep for welcoming my wife Julie and I over the past few days here. I was honored to spend an hour or so on Friday afternoon with some of the prep students talking about guiding principles, not just about a career or business or science or technology, but guiding principles in life. So what I'd like to do this morning is talk about some of those guiding principles and how those were used actually to change the US government that you know today and continually change the government, and now changing governments around the world. I don't know if it was the water at the prep, but I still smile and my heart beats a little faster whenever I think of the prep. I also want to thank so many of my classmates from '76 who are here, and I also want to say that I appreciate someone like Jerry Lederer, who was our class president, who came from the Washington, D.C. area. And I also want to thank Joe Nardi. Joe Nardi and I went to grammar school together from kindergarten to 8th grade. I remember many, many years ago, his dad was the mayor of Camden, and Joe has sons that have gone to the prep. So one of the things we talked about on Friday afternoon here at the Prep Library was the idea of partnership. People often ask me, what is the most important advice you could give to young people if you had to summarize it in one word? And the word is partnership. That be very cognizant of who you associate with. And this isn't only for business, science, technology, or your career, but in life, of course. And so after I sold my 4th high-tech company, I was told that I had made enough money. And at the time, Governor George W. Bush said to me, you need to think about doing something for the government. I think you remember that he became the President of the United States, and I was appointed the first Chief Commercialization Officer of the United States, working at both the White House as well as the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So what I want to do is share a brief story about how partnerships can really make a difference. And I first learned about good partners here at St. Joe's Prep, which I'll describe a little later. The idea was simple. When I went to government, I looked around and I thought, it takes so long to develop technologies, products, and services, particularly at Homeland Security, and they had an extremely important mission to protect our citizens and secondarily our property. And I remember when I went to the White House and they said, why don't you talk to Mike Chertoff, then Secretary of Homeland Security? And I went to see Mike after my first week in the government, and I said, you know, Mr. Secretary, the private sector is ready, willing, and able to help the public sector, the U.S. government, if we were to give them 2 things, neither of which are money. The money comes later. And he said, I don't understand, Tommy. And I said, well, of course you don't. You're a judge, and I'm a businessman. But the 2 things we need are detailed operational requirements. We need to be able to explain to people in a simple way what our problems are. And the second is to show the potential available market, the number of organizations in the U.S. government and ancillary markets that could use these technologies, products, and services. So that's how the experiment began. So I had a simple hypothesis. Let's try to see if the public and private partnerships can work hand in hand to greatly accelerate the development of technology, products, and services to help our people. I'm very proud to tell you a man named Barack Obama got elected, and he asked me to stay on the White House and Homeland Security. And a man named Donald Trump was recently elected. So the model that I'm going to talk about briefly today, I'm very proud to tell you that not only worked, but it flourishes today across 3 administrations. And we just finished writing a book for President Trump related to critical infrastructure. You may hear him talk about critical infrastructure. So again, it's a real pleasure to be here this morning. And as a former senior official who grew up in the private sector, I have been fortunate to lead teams to work in a variety of both public and private environments, solving problems using a cadre of tools and perspectives. As a public servant and a business executive, I'm pleased to share this worldwide experience with you. I was humbled that our team's work related to developing clear strategies for closing the gap between research and development and the deployment of innovations in the production of goods related to advanced manufacturing were highlighted in the 3 State of the Union addresses by President Obama, as well as still often discussed by President Bush and now used by President Trump and his administration. The proven models and processes we developed and implemented demonstrate in an open and transparent way how the public sector at all levels can team together to leverage their marketing and purchasing power to rapidly increase the deployment of technologies, products, and our services to benefit our taxpayers, our constituents, and our partners. Most of us realize today in the auditorium that technology development has the ability to transform our lives. I separate technology into 3 categories: invention, innovation, and commercialization. It's well understood now that America is still the leader of invention. That's why the best students from around the world still choose the United States to get their advanced degrees. But America has not been the leader in the last few years, in my opinion, in innovation, which is the application of a new technology, and especially commercialization, which is the recognition or development of a market and the design and deployment of technology and products and services to meet those needs. If you think about it, the U.S. government is a huge market with many needs. And actually, it was very easy to get the private sector, once we gave them detailed operational requirements and a conservative estimate of the market, at no cost to the U.S. government or the taxpayer, to develop technologies and products which we then certified. Now, we only have 10 or 15 minutes this morning, so I'm both proud and embarrassed to tell you that I've written 25 books, about 15 on this subject. There are 3 now in the Prep Library, or you can get many of them for free, because I wrote many of them when I was a U.S. public servant, to explain these models. I'm very proud to tell you that real-world examples that you may know about these processes and technologies that we develop. For example, many of you may have remembered not too far in the past with the Boston Marathon, the terrorist attack. We developed technology through a partnership with the U.S. government and the private sector, where we had developed very low-cost analytical cameras to monitor and be at a price point that virtually any building owner or person could own and operate. I'm very proud to tell you that that technology was developed in less than 3 months, unheard of in the U.S. government, at not a single penny of cost to the taxpayers, and it was that very technology that caught those 2 guys responsible. We also developed water generation systems. Food security, water security is a very critical need around the world today, even in the United States. I happen to be a volunteer fireman for the last 35 years, and the first thing that goes when there's an earthquake or a disaster is clean water. You may have remembered the earthquake in Haiti. We had developed in less than 6 months, prior to that, a technology that was used in partnership with Israel and 2 other countries that enabled water generation to allow the people of Haiti to get clean drinking water, as well as medical personnel to save lives. So these programs are very real. They work today. In the Bush administration, we saved about $39 billion a year. Obama administration, that tripled. And President Trump, when he talks about critical infrastructure and key resources, the amount of money it would take, even the US government doesn't possess. So the whole point here is that public-private partnerships are possible, not only in the United States government, but are now being adopted at the state and local level. And I do travel around the world talking to other governments who are now realizing how powerful this is. Again, it's all about things that I learned early on in my life about being a good partner to people. And the idea of partnership can work. It's now flourishing in the US government. It warms my old heart when people in the government who I don't even know will drop me a note on Facebook or LinkedIn or send me an email to say, I never met you, but we use these models all the time, and we were able to save in the last disaster many more thousands of lives than we could have thought possible. So I just want all of the folks here today and all the preppers to also realize that Latin comes in handy. When I went to the government, I used to get so frustrated. It's like anything else. People would say, God, what's it like working in the government? Well, the hardest part is working with the middle. It's like losing weight. The hardest part is the middle. Working with presidents is not that difficult. They usually give you support. They're very enthusiastic about things like public-private partnerships because politically speaking, it certainly makes them look good. The lower level usually have young people who are very energetic. It was always the people in the middle that were there 20 and 30 years. So we had to change the culture, but it is possible. So my favorite saying was a famous quote from Cicero, Queusque Catalina patientia nostra, how long will you abuse my patience? And that would be the line that I would say in a group of these folks that would look at me and say, Tommy, we know you're a decent guy, but we grew up that you were a good govy measured by how many people worked for you and what your budget was. And so I used to work with the presidents to say, we need to monitor what you accomplish, not what your budget is. So I want you to know in a very real way, these models are now working and being developed and expanding across not only the federal government, but the state and local, and as I said, across the world. So we don't have enough time to go into the models, but I do understand from the great folks at the Prep here who have been our hosts for the last couple of days, that they will put some snippets or some information you could read about if you're interested on their website. I'd like to finish up for the most important reason I'm so proud to be here is to acknowledge some people who are with us today. And I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge some very special people to me in the audience. I'm so happy my mother, Phyllis Salucci, is here today. My mother is someone, literally, who broke the glass ceiling for women before anyone knew what that was. She retired as a senior executive from a small firm called Bank of America as their head of HR, and she was awarded the Employee of the Year of that organization. Take it from a guy who's been a senior executive for many years. They don't give senior executives Employee of the Year awards. There's a reason for that. My mother got that very rare distinction because not only was it a result of all of the employees who voted for her, they had very good reason to do so. She had smoothly integrated 6 mergers and acquisitions that Bank of America had made, and as in most mergers and acquisitions, people needed to be released or laid off. But it was her compassion and her genuine concern for others that won the day, because people respected the way she did it with a heart and with kindness, and she really helped people. Also, I'll never forget my first week at the prep. My mother was a big advocate for me. I didn't realize until later that she fought hard for me to get to the prep, because my parents had so much love in our family, but they did not have a lot of money. So she told then President Father Tony Seitz, Tom will work. And when I tell you I know every inch of this prep, I really do, because I scrubbed the floors and shined the marble and granite floors in these buildings. And I was better for it. And I remember my first week of school, someone tapped me on the shoulder, and it was Father Seitz. He said, "Are you Salucci?" And I responded, yes. He said he told me how much my mother was an advocate of mine, and to never forget it, and to cherish her. And I'm certainly glad she's with us today. Next, I'd like to thank my wife, Julie Salucci, for being here today. She's my partner in life. Many of you may think you don't know Julie, but I would argue you do. Julie is the person, if you've ever gone to a philanthropic event, or if you've ever read a brochure for a charity, you see a large donation and you see the word anonymous. That's Julie Salucci. If you've ever gone to Starbucks and the person in front of you bought your cup of coffee, that's Julie Salucci. Julie is probably the one human being on earth that can always put me in the right direction as I travel through this hectic world at about 150 miles an hour. And people always talk about my accomplishments. My accomplishments are nothing. Julie helps abused children, babies, as a court-appointed special advocate, which she had to go to school 2 years for. She volunteers to do that. There's nothing more important than taking care of our young people in society. So I am just so proud of Julie and want everyone to know that she really deserves the praise for what she does every day. Of course, I want to thank all of our children and grandchildren. Get ready, this list is kind of long, and it explains easily why I have gray hair. I want to thank our children, namely Jared, Matthew, Laura, Emily, Charlie, Katie, Bradford, and Andrew, and our grandchildren, Aiden, Mason, Avery, and Hadley, for keeping us hopping and laughing all the time. Our children are literally spread all over the globe. We couldn't be more proud of them for being good people who understood early in life what partnerships mean. I also want to thank my kid sister, Monica Vandenberg, who's here with her husband, Peter. I'm very proud of Monica and her children, Stephen and Christopher. Monica does a lot of work with the community in Evesham Township, and she is someone that everyone can always count on. Finally, I want to talk about someone who can't be with us today, and that's my father, Sal. My father, Sal, taught here for 1 year in 1957, Latin. And he was a very big part with my mother on why I came to the prep. He lived an extraordinary life as a pioneer in what's now called IT, information technology. In fact, when he died, there was a special memorial for him at the U.S. Capitol. Much of what he did still is classified, but he developed the computer systems and the software used by the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the first time to make decisions to keep our country safe. But more importantly, my father was always a compass to me, and we're at a father and son breakfast. Not patting me on the back all the time saying, "Oh, you're doing great, I'm so proud." But he was proud, but he always challenged me as I progressed in my career and bought things and would take him into a new home or something that Julie and I would show him. He would look at me and say, "Tom, this is great." And he would look right at me and say, "What do you do for poor people?" How do you help the disadvantaged? He was never impressed with all this stuff. And honestly, I'm at an age where I've never been impressed with it, nor get impressed by other people that tell me about their stuff. He cared about doing things for others, and he instilled that in his children. I'm so happy that my kid brother John is here. He's better looking than me, but you can tell, as Father Swope said this morning, you don't need a DNA test. You can tell he's my brother. And he's brought my super nephew Jack, who's a member of the Philadelphia Boys Choir, who sang at many Eagles games for all of you. So I'm so glad that Jack's here. But I remember my father today, who's been dead for several years, because he got it early on. And the thing I love so much about the administration here and about all the new brothers I met, who I think I have shoes older than this past couple of days, is they understand the importance of partnerships, doing things for others, and that it is critical to be the best partner you can. With that, I'd like to thank you for your attention today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks very much for all you do for St. Joe's Prep.
Thank you, Tom. Tom, you mentioned doing things for others. Obviously, you have a tremendous background in technology. You also mentioned that you were a volunteer fireman. With that in mind, I know you have to get back to DC, but my power has been out for 2 days. Cable as well, so we'll talk. And now we will present a short video about Jack Matthews, class of '80, today's winner of the Charles Schnorr Service Award. And after the video, I would invite Father Swope to come forward for a photo with Jack. Please turn your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to the video screen.
I'm John Matthews from the class of 1980, and I live in Cheltenham. The whole idea of Magis and giving back is something that our family, we lived every day. My parents lived a very simple and humble life, and they made sure that we did what we could amongst ourselves and back in the community to give back. And coming to the prep, we saw the same type of philosophy that was driven into everything we learned at the prep. And I'm just so proud to be a graduate, and so excited to see how great the prep continues to be. I remember being in a Jesu in the late 70s, and a former prepper, Ed Fisher, came back. Ed came back because he just finished a walk from Guatemala to Philadelphia. And he spoke to the students about the importance of giving back to the community. And that story and him being there sat with me forever, and actually helped inspire what I did this year. Well, my mom was diagnosed back in 2011 with lung cancer, and our family went through the heartbreak of watching her get sick and sicker and eventually pass away. And when Mom was real sick, I just said to her, I said, I'm gonna do something. Didn't really know what it was, but I was doing the American Cancer Society bike ride a couple years ago, and I finished it. I said, well, if I can do 70 miles, I can do 3,500. A few people thought I was crazy, but Mom had this mantra that our family still talks about today, which is many hands make light work. And so lots of people, my wife, my son, my brothers, my sister, family, friends, colleagues at SAP, and one of the first phone calls I made was to Bill Abington at the prep. and let them know what I was doing, because everything about giving back in Magis is all about the prep. It's all about our family, and Bill and the folks at the prep did a great job helping out. So I left from SAP in Newtown Square and made our way across the country and finished 52 days later at the Golden Gate Bridge. There are a couple special moments. My wife was driving the van for me out in Missouri, and everyone who was driving the van, did their part to help me get farther west, just to get this thing finished. And getting to 1,000 miles with Beth was, it was great. And then as I made my way out west, my brother Patrick, class of '88, decided he's going to help me. He'll be riding with me out west. And it just so happened those days were Colorado, and 3 of the toughest days of the ride. Going 80 miles, climbing 5,000 feet into the wind, and with some of the hardest riding. Without a lot of practice, I did a lot of training. But without a lot of training, he did it, and he killed it, and it was really emotional. And we got into Utah together and shared a great hug. Every day on the ride, I sang the fight song, and I yelled "Go Prep." So, oh yeah. I would have been one of those kids who couldn't have gotten to the prep. My parents, they struggled to make ends meet. We struggled, and they got some money from the prep. Somebody did the same thing, and I'm just glad to have the honor and the opportunity to do the same thing, and give someone a better chance at what their education and their life can be. So we're going to be doing this again this year. We're going to do another big ride, and I'm so grateful to have the help from the prep. And we'll start again in August. You'll hear more coming up, but the main thing is lung cancer is the #1 cancer killer in the world today. It's the #1 cancer killer in every state in this country. It doesn't discriminate. Anybody with lungs can get lung cancer. And I was so proud that we raised $93,000 last year. My goal in my lifetime is to raise $1 million. We're going to do it. And I'm so excited to do it, and so grateful to have the prep involved again and supporting us as we march towards $1 million. So I'd like to thank Father Swope for all of your support along the ride, and for writing that blog that was so inspirational to me. I'd like to thank the entire alumni, and for all the prep students and prep alumni who supported me, cheered me on as I was making my way across the country. And in particular, big thanks to Bill Abington, who helped from the beginning, to Andy Quirk, to Al Zimmerman. Guys, you trusted me, you believed in what we were doing, and I'm so glad I had your help and your support throughout the whole ride. I'd like to thank my beautiful wife, Beth, for being there every mile of the way. For my son, even though he went to LaSalle, Donnie, you're the best. To my brothers, my sister, cousins, family, friends, colleagues at SAP, this doesn't happen without you. And of course, mostly to Mom and Dad, who always believed in me, who always loved the prep, and I'm glad we finished it, and so helpful for Mom. As you always said, many hands make light work, and that's what made this happen. Go Prep!
We will now present our next award, and as usual, we will take a photo up here following the remarks. The Reverend David A. Sauter of the Society of Jesus Award is presented annually to a student or students who have overcome great obstacles in their time at the Prep. To present the award, I would like to bring up longtime Prep English teacher, Mr. Jim O'Brien of the class of '62. Jim.
Good morning. It's so very good to be here today, sharing in this communion breakfast with so many generations of preppers, and to have the opportunity to present this special award. It is now 60 years since I entered the Prep as a student, and 47 years since I began my tenure as a teacher here. And over that time, I have been very impressed with the young men who come here as students. Young men who inevitably share two traits in common: a willingness to take on challenges and a deep and abiding love for the Prep, its traditions, and their classmates. The David A. Sauter Society of Jesus Award appropriately celebrates the spirit of independence and resilience by selecting a student from the present class of seniors who has faced unusual challenges and demonstrated resolve and determination in the face of difficulty. This year's award is shared by two members of the senior class. They are brothers. They are twins. They are sons of math professor Matt Miller, big brothers to my grandchildren, and godsons I share with my wife. This year's winner of the David A. Sauter Award are Mark and Michael Miller. Now, Mark and Michael's presence at the Prep may not seem on the surface to be so exceptional, but their journey has involved real challenges and tragedies. Born to a teenage mom, their early years were monitored by Catholic Social Services. When they were 3 years old, they were placed in the care of foster parents, Matt and his wife, Mary Ann, who eventually adopted the boys when the youngsters were 5. The adoption was hardly over when Mary Ann was diagnosed with a cancer that would involve an 18-month-long illness and her death just when the boys turned 7 years of age. At that important time, when most children are benefiting from a warm and stable environment, Mark and Michael's lives were taken up with unavoidable turmoil. At that time, the Miller family pulled together and began the process of healing. Matt was sustained in his new challenge by his faith and the support from many members of the Prep community who became adoptive uncles and aunts to his children. Meanwhile, after these difficult early years, the boys struggled academically, and when they switched schools, they were diagnosed with issues involving dyslexia and ADHD that interfered with their progress and resulted in their repeating 3rd grade. Over time, they worked with intensive tutoring and an individual education plan to discover how to compete in a demanding academic environment. When it came time to pick a high school, it was not clear that the Prep would be the best choice. The curriculum, their learning differences, and the competition at the Prep caused their father great concern. Still, Matt left that decision up to his boys, and Mark and Michael, like so many of their classmates, chose to embrace the special challenges offered at St. Joe's Prep. These last few years have not been easy, but the boys have worked hard to succeed as students and have prospered at the school. They now stand before us, true men for and with others, prepared to graduate and face the challenges that lie ahead. Mark and Michael are inspirations to the Prep community. They have dealt with adversity in their young lives, but with love and support, they have grown to be impressive young men who represent with distinction their school, their family, and their friends. They demonstrate for all of us what a Prep education involves and what it offers to young men who are willing to test themselves and to take on this challenging and nurturing environment. Please join me now in saluting Michael and Mark Miller.
Our next award will be the Man for Others Award, presented annually by the Mission and Ministry Office to a junior at the Prep who has shown himself to be worthy of distinction. To present this year's award is last year's winner, Stephen Durkis of the Prep class of 18. Steve, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Braithwaite. It's an honor to be able to present this award today to my friend, castmate, and fellow prepper, John Fioravanti, or Fio, as most of us have come to know him. In the past several years, John has grown and thrived in our Mission and Ministry Department. In particular, his extraordinary work this year with the choir, his work coordinating the morning prayer schedule, and his dedication to serve as a leader for both the freshman and sophomore retreats. A Mission and Ministry staff member said of John, "He is a man of deep faith who challenges himself daily and strives for the Majas. He uses his gifts and talents joyfully as an ambassador of the Prep, and he exhibits depth in his gifts, musically by singing in the choir, prayerfully by guiding others to Christ in prayer, and actively by doing service each day." It is especially impactful to present this award to John in the presence of his family members, those with us here today, and those smiling down from heaven. And so I am proud to present Mission and Ministry's 2018 Man for Others Award to Junior John Fioravanti.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the 32nd President of St. Joseph's Prep, Father John W. Swope, S.J., from the great Prep class of 1972. Father Swope.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Today we have honored men and young men who have made significant impacts on St. Joseph's Prep, and the generosity and support that the Prep has received from them really knows no bounds. A huge thank you to you, Tom, for your inspiring and meaningful comments, and it was wonderful just sharing an evening meal with you and Julie last night, and just honored to welcome your family today as well. Jack, I am in awe of your determination and your boundless love for your family. I could not think of anyone more deserving that fits the bill for the award. And I think if you put your mind to it, you could ride that bike right across the Atlantic Ocean. Mark, Michael, and John, you exemplify what a Prep student should be. Continue to live our Jesuit mission in all that you do. And John, remember that when you're working with the choir, remember what a great man once said, "He who sings prays twice." Thank you, and congratulations for these 5 incredible preppers. Let's give them all one round of applause. Thank you. I don't know about you, but my spirit soars when I hear these preppers speak and credit the foundations of who they are and their success to their experience here at the school. I'm reminded of similar words when we honored Speedy and Mimi Morris last week. Mimi said of the prep, "There is a love here that I have never felt anywhere else. I feel that love here right now, here in this very room." We have a strong mission here at the prep and a Jesuit education at 17th and Girard. There's simply nothing quite like it. It's what drew me here, well, it drew my mother here to the prep in 1968, got me through the door. In part, it's what fostered my Jesuit vocation and is what inspires me here every day now as president. In recent months, we've spent a lot of time preparing and launching our strategic plan, which many of you will be receiving in the mail very soon. The first goal of the plan, the primary goal of the plan, the capstone of the plan, the jewel in the crown of the plan is the goal to live our Jesuit and Catholic mission. Nothing is more important to me and to our trustees than living our Catholic and Jesuit mission through the work that we do, especially in mission and ministry. This is done each day through retreats, service, and by drawing our young men into a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ to ensure that they be sent forth into the world in service of others. Our strategic plan also calls for a deeper and richer engagement with our parents, who are, of course, our co-laborers in mission. As I look out over the sea of parents and alumni here today, I'm reminded of just how vibrant you are. And it is an honor for us to co-labor with you as the primary educators of your sons. Our alumni really are responsible for our prep legacy. You keep sacred the memories of your prep experience, but you also turn and you look into the future with us to envision that future of the prep, which is dependent on you to heed the call, to help us offer to the next generation the great education and unique brotherhood that you received here. You, Tom, and Jack, you're role models for our students as you live what this school means to you. The doors of the prep were open to you alums and to your sons. Help us to open the doors to the next generation of students who are ready to impact their school, their communities, and in fact, the world. I ask that God bless each and every one of you and that God continue to bless the mission of St. Joseph's Prep. Thank you, and go Prep. I'll make the comment now. And I do have to say, isn't it great having Tony here with us today? And Tony, I just want to say that the way you MC, it really takes our breath away.
Thank you, Father. I had swoped you would say that. As we wrap up here today, I'd like to ask the members of the class of '76 to come forward to this area for a photo. And I would also like to remind everyone that the prep shop will be open as you exit today. Thank you, and again, go Prep.